Welcome on in. It is episode number 8. Ladies and gentlemen, we have quite the episode, the last Mandalorian episode 8, titled in our Embroider versus Challenge. This is day number 8 as we take on the computer software in our personalized challenge that we've created. We've come a long way even in the 8 days that we've streamed here. This is our last, hopefully, as we wrap up this project and move on to our next subject matter in day number 9. But before we get there, let's head on over to the desk. Before we do that, let's go ahead and finish up some of the intro here. It is I, K22, with Sheevs Emporium, the 1992 Hancock Fabrics champion and embroider master. And with that, follow me. Our Embroider versus Challenge has come quite the distance. We now have a stronger workflow style that we're adopting. This is at the direction of Sheev himself. And what we've done is taken our subject matter. Our target limit is 100,000 stitches. We are currently at about 96,000. If we exceed that, it's completely fine on this end. And we have some patented pending chisel method on display today as we move into our subject matter. So once again, it's taking a piece of digitized embroidered end result that's going to be on display and in competition with what the computer can provide as we progressively get better and better and better. The program is Hatch. If you haven't been around our streams, it is heavily backed by White Bat Audio. We want to appreciate and thank our streaming background, which creates a nice workflow. Our program is Hatch 3. Let's begin. And so to briefly recap the recap. As we zoom out, we did do a rewatch. Our settings have been dialed in even better. There should be less skipping on this current stream, less buffering. So here's our subject matter. Mando in his cockpit. Currently, this is at 9 inches wide by 7.5 tall. We've gone through, if you want to go back on our episode 5, 6, and 7, as we zoom in here, capture some of this satin detail. We're changing stitch angles, moving back and forth from satins to fills. As we move down, let's go ahead and just hit the P button really quick so we can just pan around very nicely without zooming. There we have it. So again, we're working top to bottom, left to right with our patented pending chisel method that we've been applying. We started with an overall canvas. And with that canvas, we've been chopping it down, assigning it colors through our palette. Our palette selection is back on episode 5, I believe, refined on 6, and on episode 8 today. We're going to go ahead and continue on with chiseling and cutting and carving like a surgeon cutting for the first time. Going to be ever so careful and go ahead and go back to our O. I'm going to go ahead and bring some of this detail forward as we get our audio tracks reset. You can see we did some of the armor in our previous episode. Right off the bat, I'm going to go ahead and change this color to a darker shade. It'll just blend a little bit nicer with that detail there. We did some sequencing off camera. We're going to go ahead and continue unless it's suggested or requested rather. And our workflow is again largely narrative, slightly instructional. Let's finish up sleeve, armor, joystick, glove. Throw a nice satin border around the edge and call this one done. So again, before we jump in, some of the recapping does include some of the changes that we made. Let me go ahead and bring up the sequence now. Go ahead and click on our colors here. Now, if I can recall correctly, by bringing both of these, we can kind of bring it over for example and explanation. Again, going to our colors, top to bottom, left to right, we can kind of walk ourselves through our approach here. We have our larger, lighter shade with our darker shade, followed up by our smoky color. Then we're going back in the ocean blue, coming in with the armor. Pausing for a moment as we understand where exactly this shape is. Understood. We just changed it on this stream not a few minutes ago, so that's why it's causing some delay in what we're doing here. Again, then we come in with the blacks, producing our color changes, and we're not too concerned with trims and jumps because that's putting limitation and largely focused on a production environment, and we're more interested in creating art and one-off pieces. So we'll be cognizant of it, but not limited by it, and just leave it at that. We got quite a bit of jumps going back and forth with this level of detail, but we're willing to man the machine, create it. Going into our browns, then we have our lighter colors at the end, and here, this is the recap portion that we finally reached. After only 10 minutes of narrative content, we now have the black fully within one layer or color selection before it moves on to these last and final colors. Now in this black section here, as we go back to the objects, scroll down, it should have that entire section highlighted. There we go. So from 88 in sequence all the way to 136 as of now. All of these have been put in logical order to reduce movement of the machine. And so again, that's part of the production style component. Sure, we can have the machine jumping back and forth from top to bottom, But if we can help it along top to bottom, left to right, and just kind of keep that flow concept, changing some of the start-stop points. Again, it's a lot of clicking, a lot of narrative, which we are done with. Let's move on. And sequencing some of that black, we ended here. And so our next attempt is going to be in this area here. We may move over to the joystick, the glove, come back over, and then jump back to the sleeve. But instead of having that final jump, let's abandon that for what feels far more correct. And let's work on this one here. Let's go ahead and unhide all. And this section, we're just going to hang a left before we move over to the right of these items. So bringing in our patented pending chisel method, in which we take an item, apply a blanket stitch to it, and use our knife tool, and we're slicing. So here I want to create this nice curve of the arm, and we'll exit about here. Center mouse to confirm. Now we have our two shapes, upper and lower. So we're going to go back into our top selection, hit our knife tool, and let's chop out and chisel out. This just feels right. Okay, there we go. As you can kind of tell, we're going to follow. Follow this line here, just jumping back and forth from our hard lines to our curve shapes. And as mentioned previously, we are working on obtaining a screenshot or capture method of displaying our key presses, so you can visually see on rewatch if you want to try your own attempt and following along. Which buttons we're pressing. So we have an entry here, and we can finish it on this end, and that seems more appropriate. Let's go ahead and now that we've exited our shape, let's go ahead and center mouse press. Give it a moment. Quickly hit save. And again, the really amazing concept here that we found in our workflow as we've been presenting, and it just translates extremely well on camera and streaming format, is that we can go in, make our shapes as needed, and then the most amazing benefit is we can just leave it on this zoom setting for now, that this section and this section are right next to each other, which means we're not having to create multiple lines on the same exact shape by using our chisel and knife methods. Taking our time, we can do something like this. Go back to our fill, change it to a tatami, And there we have it. We have our entire shapes, which we can then select. Relax our selection tool. Reset our audio. Let's delete some of these jump points. We'll take care of those later off stream. That should be black. Oh, and you can see, look at that detail that we have just added. And having our reference right next to it has created the most useful approach. So let's black that as well. Okay. Now, we do have, if we can calm down on the zooming here, we covered our shades in episode 5 and 6, which is right over here. This is our darker shade for the undersuit, which is listed as a mahogany. And if I recall, it is pecan for our lighter shade, which we did include right here on this leather belt. So let's go ahead and relax our selection tool, which we do just to reset again, so nothing is selected. We can go ahead and go back in, select our pecan. That's our current color. I'm going to select this item and hide it for just a moment. And the idea was to add our pecan now. Let's stick with it. Let's go ahead and just do it. Why not? Our first initial approach was all black details. Then we would come in with the alternating color, thinking that it was going to be difficult or time consuming to resequence off stream, which really wasn't. So that's why this time around, we already got it selected. Let's go back to our freehand closed. Let's select a nice satin. Zoom right on in. Get nice and close. We're just going to come up this way. Now, this is one of our larger satins in shapes that we've attempted. So we're going to let it auto space and auto split, which allows us to go a little bit larger than what would be considered. Okay. Adding a definite element there. Let's go ahead and add another. Add another. Let's go ahead and switch over to our black selection tool. We're still in freehand close. We're still in satin. Since this is the sleeve, we've decided to add a little bit more three-dimensional aspects. And since these satins are going to be laying on top, let's again reset our audio. In our post-sequencing off-screen, off our live, we'll take care of this. But for the sake of example, This works extremely well for our streaming format. Let's go ahead and redo that. Try that one more time. Just add one more right in here. Again, being careful not to stay on the exact line, as the satin will puncture at alternating points and not rest on the same area over and over. So on this larger, let's go hit a quick save. On our larger item, it would stitch a satin on top of this and create a layered effect. You run a probability of entering the same area over and over, possibly broken needles, which we're trying to avoid. Again, we're being aware of some of the methods and techniques and theory behind our attempts of self-learning in this 30-day challenge. All that to say, we may just click a button that says remove. Remove. Let's attempt it now. It's definitely in our edit section. And here it is. By clicking remove overlaps, what it will do is remove any overlaps to the point that you won't have that raised effect. It'll remove some potential areas being punctured over and over and over, creating an highly resistant puncture area. Wow. Okay. We've explained the remove overlaps, which we'll consider later. Let's go back over here, unhide all as we move on. And just like that, we've added a bit more structured detail on that end. Let's just try a tatami on this. That satin may be a little excessive. Let's throw caution to the wind and just leave it as is with our first initial instinct. As we inspect our next section, there's a little bit more highlight that we could do on this end. So very simply relaxing our selection tool. We're still on the black. Let's go back over to the pecan. So we're ready. Let's hide selection. Now here's a great example of our patented pending chisel method. I just noticed that if we change this over to a blanket, we could simply just chop it from here to here, creating two separate shapes exactly needed over the entire top here. We wouldn't have to do any remove overlaps. We might have to change some stitch fill settings to not do an edge run. But regardless, check this out. I believe the phrase is irregardless. Let's check this out. In any sense, take a look at this. We've selected our item. Let's switch that over to a pecan immediately and then change it over to a satin. Just like that. Created that highlighted detail in the other shade. Let's go back over here. Click on H, which is resetting our stitch angle. And we just want it to be a little bit offset from the one above. I'm going to revisit this attempt here, hit delete, go back here, go back to our blanket, go back to our knife tool, and let's see if we can do this a little better. Some of these cuts here, we don't want them to look like teardrops. All right, we'll cut across here. See, that's where do a curve, straight, curve. There we go. We'll relax one of those sides there. Which I'd like to go back and... It'd be nice to be able to make our knife cut, then confirm it. But we don't mind, we'll just come back here. There we have it. We have a more chiseled. And it's fairly simple to achieve. It's making sure that every point is with a point, and our curves, which is our right clicks, are on these longer sections. Let's go ahead and do a curve, straight. There we are. As we exit to admire our new shape, looks acceptable. Go ahead and click and confirm. This looks like a jump, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that there. This also appears to be a jump. Let's go ahead and return our items back to a fill where it looks more presentable. Coming up and changing that upper to a pecan. And sure enough, we can go ahead and hit a satin on there still. And what we have is two separate items right up against each other. There is no overlap. There's no third dimension added. We could effectively click a raised satin. There is a potential and kind of huge spoiler for those of you who have tuned into episode 8. Welcome. It's IK22, the 1992 Hancock Fabrics Champion and Embroider Master. Sharing with you today our future idea at the minute 30 mark noted here on episode 8, we're going to add puff embroidery to some of these items. Moving forward, not only taking it from a two-dimensional fabric textile image being placed on a functional use item. So if you followed along with that, what we're going to add is puff embroidery to some of these sections, because shouldn't we have the entire helmet three-dimensional and lifted? And as we gain more skills and more exposure to this program in Hatch, we're going to include some of that raised puff embroidery. But for now, just zooming back into this section here, oh, it looks very, very detailed. Just panning over for a brief moment to inspect, because we are doing great on time. That looks like a good attempt and representation. For a brief second, we're going to zoom in to this section here, just so we can highlight that we did, in fact, use in our last streaming episode a carving stamp. And that is, in fact, the shape of the signet on his pauldron. We also use the stamped method over here. And the idea was, let's go ahead and fill it with a nice stitch at the end in that nice creased valley that the computer is offering to provide. Again, in our attempt to provide the best detailed example that'll win in comparison to what the auto-digitized feature will give. And I think we are making great, solid progress so far. Let's go ahead and hide our next selected. We're going to go back to our black. Let's do a digitized open first. Pausing for a brief moment as we grab a couple more of these items. I'm going to go ahead and hide those as well. Getting some refresh pausing on this end here, so we're going to go ahead and hit a quick save. Go back to our digitized open. And here we go. Let's start here. And what we're going to do is a nice triple run. A little too far. And we should be okay to cross here. We kind of identified this pattern as we zoom in very closely. Again, this is a triple run stitch as it sounds. Fairly heavy stitch on top of already stitched sections, so this is why we're being very aware of our placing. cautious not to overlap. Right up against other sections as needed. Let's go ahead and take care of one continuous line. And we'll just stop there. As we zoom back in, let's go back over to a freehand closed, which we're still on the nice satin. Edit, let's go to digitize closed instead. And there's our satin. Immediately, let me go ahead and bring up some of our sequence. Go back up to our selection tool, hitting our H button, and let's go ahead and add our own stitch angles. Cross here, cross here, cross here. Add as many as you need to. Enter and confirm. Hit select again. And there we have it. One satin that wraps itself around. Let's go ahead and see how it looks by for those of you that caught that exact sequence of events as it was not narrated. That worked out extremely well. What we did is we took this item, duplicated it, brought it back over here, did some slight rotation, slight editing, which this computer program wonderfully allows us to edit some of these shapes as needed. Very, very detailed. Let's go ahead and add in our lower section by going back to our digitized open. Again, we're on a triple run. We're in our black selection tool. We've just ended approximately here. So let's go ahead and make it easy. Come all the way down. And right back here. Coming back up and grabbing this detail line. There we go. Adding that entire section here. Can we fit through here? And we're zoomed in at 1,056%. Which is so amazing that it allows us to go this detailed into. Let's grab that other item. Go ahead and enter and confirm. come back down here. Zoom right on in. Make this curve here. And we'll make it easy. We'll just do a couple straight lines here, back in here. There we have it. So we'll right click, unhide all, and there we have our nicely added detail section of our bandolier. There we have it. It looks like there's some added highlights in here of our lower shade. Let's do an audio reset on here. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and re-hide this again. Sure enough. So if you recall, our pecan was our highlighted shade. Go ahead and freehand close this. We're still stuck in a satin, which is perfect. Now that's just asking for something to go wrong when it's hitting both these sections immediately. Let's go ahead and hit M. I'm going to switch over to metric. Now, due to the streaming refresh rate, you may not be able to see it on your end, but this is 2 millimeters. We can go back down to a 1 if needed. So this is still within the acceptable. Looks a little more on point. Right at the minimum. Might even be able to delete that. But this is a shape here that definitely could use that freehand close shaped. We're just going to add that right in there. And I would like to see one right in here as well. Again, overlapping, so that way our puncture areas not hitting the exact same spot. Keep on returning to this one here to shrink it down. And if we're having to do this much rework, let's just go ahead and hit delete. We'll go ahead and go back to a digitized open. And there we have it. It's a nice method. See it too. It's bouncing over enough and then coming right down the center. Might be a little tight. We'll find out when it does stitch out, and that's the whole point of why we're here, to learn and push the limits and boundaries and the theory into a larger embroidered content. So we're right at the 45-minute mark for now. Can we complete these next 3 sections in 15 minutes? Why not? Let's go ahead and hit hide hide selected, hide selected. Okay, these are our two sections. We're going to go ahead and edit redo, because that took off that. As we reset here for our next sections, these are the ones in question. That's what we needed to do. Let's change this all over to a blanket. Let's get to our chisel method. There we have our selection. Our knife tool identifies that. Let's go ahead and slice it across. Enough talk. It will come up. Let's go ahead and click our selection, re-knife that. As we have a bit of resetting here. There we are. So again, what this is going to do is allow us to cut in such a way that these shapes will be exactly correct shape on both ends of being cut. And then we'll exit right up here. Let's go ahead and undo that. It's a little sharp. There we go. A little more relaxed. We've entered and exited our shape. We can go ahead and click and confirm. We have one jump section in here that we can go ahead and delete now. Okay. Switch those back over to a tatami for now. Because we are in our bonus round, which we are determined Now, we could have each one of these fingers a different thread fill. Let's go ahead and cut it here for our back half, which is our darker tones. Maybe even cut it again there. That didn't work. Let's go ahead and put a curve and then a straight there. This is working out so well. Let's make sure we have a curve there. There's the top half. Let's go grab the bottom half. This will be our detail stitch on top because it is fairly small to create into a satin by itself. Let's go look at the rear of the glove here. Take our knife tool. We're going to go ahead and cut off this darker shade in the rear. The rest will be highlights. Now our next item to be cut here, I'm going to make our first initial cut for our hand plate. Which is going to be a lot sharper of an edge. Okay. And then our armor is going to be cut from here. To here. Just like that, we have made our last knife cut in our chisel method. Let's go ahead and get rid of some of these travels for now because they do get in the way. Switching everything back over to a tatami. There we are. Looks like that's a travel point. This is another travel. This is another travel. Now, I went over to our color selection because what we can do here is we can just click on our color. It highlights everything in that sequential order. We're going to come back over to tatami and just very simply hit that. So you can see already the varying shapes have created a depth effect. And I know for certain that this rear one is going to be a satin. That works out very well. Let's go back to our colors selection. I'm going to go change that over to a blanket for now. Also, this one, we're going to change that to a blanket for now. And the reason for that in our objects bar, change that one immediately to a black. Undo and undo. We wanted this one to be black. Go ahead and switch that to a satin right now. We're still selected. I'm going to go ahead and hit H. I'm going to introduce and add our stitch angles. And I would like them just to follow curve here. I'm going to take our time as we did get a small blip in programming here. Let's see what happens when we do this. Enter confirm, hit a quick save. Let's confirm that we're still online at a 56-minute mark. And there we go. Let's go back to our selection tool. We're going to go ahead and select again. And it's pretty interesting that we can't just relax our selections until we hit off of our canvas, but we'll work through it. Right now we're on pecan. Let's go back to a black in our color. Let's freehand some close shapes. Work on our nice satin here. There we have it. Let's go ahead and digitize open, which we're on the triple run. We're around this area here, which we can then enter here, 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 here. Let's escape from that. Have another idea in store for that section. Let's just come up here. Take care of this. Go back to our selection tool. That should work for now. Going back to our digitized open. Pausing for a brief moment as kind of get a game plan as to what is next. Let's change this back over to a tatami on all of those. Go back to our objects. On this one, we're going to go ahead and duplicate it now. Change it to an outline. Change it to black. As we reset again, and then we're going to go ahead and cut away any portion. There we go. Cut us through there. Now this top one we're going to delete because we already have that outline shape, and as you can see, we probably should have confirmed which area needs to be cut. So we're going to cut from here through here. Coming back around. Understood. Let's go ahead and hit unhide all. We're going to make our cut right across here. Already we forgot. We've entered and exited our shape. Let's go ahead and confirm. Let's go ahead and hit delete. And this should be our remaining shape and outline. Let's go ahead and change that back to a black. And there we have it. Now, I'm going to hit reshape. Bring this end right to there. This is interesting. Let's see if this works. Too close. So we can just add another point. There we have it. And there, in episode 8, at the 1 hour mark, we're adding items and methods which are just going to work out so well. If you can see already what this is done. Go ahead and hit H again. Starts here, identified by the green. Works its way around. Comes up in there, which we added that extra detail outside of the knife cut. Brought it right back down. It still stays on the perimeter edge, which will remove some of the underlay edge stitching, so it'll be nice and clear, ready to accept this triple run effect of a stitch. So let's zoom out for a brief moment, and you can see all of the detail that we've just captured. Now, on the joystick, there should be a lighter shade, which is 29, I believe. Heavy Storm. Whereas this one's darkest blue. So we have our selection. Let's change it now. There we have it. Now on our selection tool, let's go back to that 29. Let's freehand close shape. We're back in a satin, and we're just going to drop a big fat satin shape right there. Maybe right here too. Interesting. Works. Now, the only section that does not have an outline is right here. Take care of that. As we move on to our glove section, up here we have our darkest shade. Labeled as light cocoa, with our lighter shade as a old gold. So these initially old gold. Old gold. Satin? Why not? Interesting. Black. go ahead and click on there, click here, and here. Change it back to a tatami. I'm going to have to add that. That's interesting. Let's go back to here and change this back. Didn't quite achieve that effect that we're going for. Let's change it back to the cocoa, but let's change the effect to a satin to signify the separation of the finger. Let's go back to a light cocoa, freehand closed, and we're just gonna jump right in. Add our 1, 2, 3 fingers. Okay, that's pretty close. Now, on a majority of these items, we did add a triple run edge stitch through them, but if they're already going to be identical, and we only did that to add a separation factor between some of these colors and shapes, but if they're already going to be black, let's go ahead and leave it as is. So for example, this entire back half of a shape, let's go ahead and hit our select tool. We can chop that off completely from here to here. For now, we'll leave it. We'll probably, again, as we do some editing off stream, we'll recapture some of that if we need to change it drastically. But for the sake of our stream today, as we enter our last and final shapes, let's go ahead and understand where we're going to trim this. I believe the trim is for everything but there, so it was pretty easy. Going back to our edit. Knife tool. Let's go ahead and cut here, here, and here. Enter and confirm. Right. There we have it. What kind of detail can we add? It's our lighter shade on our armor based on our color palette here. Let's calm down with the zooming. Do apologize for that. Black, white, canopy, undersuit, as I'm walking myself through these colors here. Gloves, and here was our lighter shade for our armor. Here's our darker shade, lighter shade, which is going to be the Saturn Gray. Let's go ahead and highlight all three of these. We'll go ahead and hide those. And let's chop it down some more. This is the one in question. We're going to unhide that one. Go back to a blanket on here. Go back to a knife. Unhide, blanket, knife, just a straight cut right through here. all changed back to a tatami. We're going to go back to the smaller color, change it to a Saturn gray. This one's going to change over to a Saturn gray as well. I'm going to change that over to a satin so we can get that nice effect, which we just achieved there. All of our highlights we've noticed are going to go back to a satin, so let's do that. Interesting. So at this point, what we're missing is a little bit more black outline detail through here. We can do that very simply. Selecting this item, duplicate it, change it to an outline, change it to black. Rather an offset color just so we can see where we're going to cut it. I just want this line here. First half, second half, change it back to a black, and there we have that detail in there. We're going to go through and add some of these last final bits. We're going to switch over to our black in our open shape as we are nearing the conclusion. And so, if you've guessed it, we are going to wrap this up. We're not going to make it wait. Meaning, we're going to see what the computer can auto-digitize for us today. This is the only section that does not have an outline on it. Coming back over here. Because this will be in the final result, I'm going to go ahead and just do it. I'm going to zoom back into here. Do a quick audio reset. And again, trying to join some of these. Version. This looks extremely different than what we were anticipating in the shades. And it's only doing that because we didn't unhide all. There we go. So in our final attempt, let's go ahead and hit save. For those of you who have stuck around with us, we are at 1 hour and 15. We're only about 15 minutes over our anticipated target time. For something like this moving forward, we are going to attempt to digitize in 3 sessions. Maximum 4 is a little excessive for one single item, but it may not be. Made some solid progress throughout all of this as we've continued. We are still in our black selection. We're going to go ahead and digitize an open shape, change it over to a satin. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit further, change it over to a 4mm. And we're going going to create a shape from here, hitting our control button to get some very, very straight lines. And there we have it. Now, off stream, we're going to go ahead and make a nice ending cap. We might have to change some of these shapes out. But a chiseled point, we can just do it now. Digitize open. We're going to grab that. We're going to hit Control Duplicate. Zoom in. Just place it right on top. Find that cap. We're going to select all three. Going back into our edit objects, we are going to weld them together. And there we have it. We might change out some of these points. Let's try that one more time. Fix that off stream. But for now, the moment that we've all been waiting for, let's go ahead and do a quick recap, rather introduction, just to briefly introduce this next concept. For the sake of our shorts, as we are doing a live presentation here, there's only one take. So what we do is utilize some of these, again, details not needed. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on day number 8. It is K22 with Sheevs Emporium. We have just wrapped up our final episode as we wrap up this content that we're going to go ahead and attempt. Blah, 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 blah. Our embroider challenge continues on. Hey, it was worth an attempt. Here we go. Come over to our auto digitize. We hit a quick save. In the event that this uses up a lot of computer power, we'll come back. And this is our button that we're up against, auto digitize instant embroidery. Let's go ahead and click away. We'll get a nice pop-up down here saying generating stitches. And there we have it. Let's hit a quick save. Let's go back up. Unlock all. Let's go ahead and hide selected. Hide this selected. And there we have it, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, it is day number 8. We have just completed our entire attempt at digitization. We have just clicked on our auto digitize from our base subject matter, and clearly we have a winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. We have gotten the chicken dinner today. That's one for us. And the reason for it is not much. Obviously, it's far more detailed and complete, but if you were to put a black behind this entire canvas, it actually works. Let's try it now. here. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at tatami. And I'm going to shove it all the way to the top. And you could see that on black fabric, the auto digitization does pretty damn decent job. Now, we won't get into the specifics of why this is not an opportune file, but it did offer this as a file that we could hypothetically take to our computer, convert it over to the proper format, and digitize it out. The image on your right, we've anticipated at least 108,000 stitches, currently sitting at 257,000 stitches, 250,000 stitches in our entire item here, which means if our math is done correctly and on the fly, 150 stitches here, 108 here. So we saved ourselves 50,000 stitches, which is approximately a couple hours of different color changes. And again, we have more detail in our pauldron. So what we can learn from this, look at the varying shades of applying different colors, and it got a far greater, that's what comes to mind first, is the glove looks a lot better on the auto digitization. But hey, we made our attempt. Our file is finally ready. The square shape does look nice. But our canopy with our changed edit, again, we already have a winner. We're the 1992 Hancock Fabrics champion, and again, a champion in our episode number 8, self-declared, of course. We'll put this up for the archives of this one and wrap this one up. Let's head on over to our throne room. We've done enough narrative format, hitting the hour and 24-minute mark. As we load this up, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on day number 8. We have emerged victorious again. We are in the lead. We'll get an update on our current counter as we've completed, I believe, now 4 different subject matters. As we move on to day number 9, it is again another Mandalorian. Different pose. Let's try to keep it under 2 to 3 streams maximum. If you've stuck around this far at the hour and 25, after Mando, we're going to reach out to a commissioned item and offer this opportunity to create a Boba Fett highly detailed and embroidered item on a functional use bagged helmet, commissioned order. Now that one is going to be one to look out for with the color combination. As always, I am K22 with Sheevs Emporium. Join us for day number 9, locking the vault. Now.